Hello everyone, it's Melanie here with Vintage Hill Studio. I'm so glad you joined me today. I'll be making a shaker card and this is what it will look like. Now this video is a little longer than normal because I have a lot of tips and techniques to share with you, so let's get to it. I'll be using this Firefly Stamp and Cut set, the Doris Honeycomb background, and these circle dies. 3 colors of paper for my bees, and I'll start with this cute little bee which will make the black outline, and I'll be using some contact paper because I'm going to show you an inlay method to add color to this black outline. The contact paper is great because once I adhere this to my bee cutout, I'll have one side that's sticky, which is going to be conducive to the inlay method. So I simply traced around my bee, and I'm going to try to cut out on the inside of those lines as closely as possible. Then off camera I'm taking my bee and I'll get it die cut, which will produce this wonderful outline. You'll see how intricate this is. I'll take my piercing tool and just remove those little pieces, which will give me my silhouette. And there we have it. So the next step is to cut the colors that I'm going to inlay onto my bee. So I've got yellow for the body, and I want to set aside all my little pieces and parts until I've got my die cuts completed. Next I'll come over with that blue color for the wings, and off camera I'll get that all die cut. And you're going to see why I want to leave all these pieces intact. This is part of the trick of making the inlay process a lot easier, especially when you have all these little bitty pieces. So the next thing I want to do is take that contact paper and get that adhered to the black silhouette of my bee. So I'll peel that apart, apply it to my bee. So one side will be slick and the other side, the front of my bee, will have the adhesive. I hope you can see that on camera, so it gives it a little shimmer. And if you have any overlay here, just simply trim around there to get rid of your contact paper. Okay. So the shiny part is actually the adhesive part of my contact paper. Next I'm going to take a little piece of washi tape for the body, just to hold those pieces together until I can get them aligned with the silhouette. And the idea here is to use my piercing tool to get these individual pieces pushed down into the sticky part of the contact paper. That will create the inlay process of getting color added to this black body of the bee. Any little pieces can be picked up with a tool and simply put into the sticky part of the contact paper. Just use what you have. Make sure those are all adhered down and make any minor adjustments as needed. Some of these little pieces gave me trouble, but there would be a whole lot more trouble if I tried to punch those out and then get them back in the order they belong on the bee. So again, by leaving them intact with the die cut itself, it makes adhering these little bitty pieces much easier. So this one, the blue part, was easier to align because of the body and the head. I'm not going to worry about any little pieces that popped out while I'm trying to get these adhered. I can go back and pick those up with my sticky tool and get those put in place as soon as I get the majority down into the contact paper. So much easier just to go back with a few little pieces than trying to do all of them and figure out where they go. And if you need to make any adjustments, just use your piercing tool or anything that works for you to get those lined up and pushed down into the contact adhesive. Next, I'll be working on my 5x7 card base with two mats, a black mat and a yellow mat, and all the dimensions can be found on my card blog with more detailed information about making this card. I'm going to run that yellow mat through my embossing folder using my Sizzix Texture Boutique. Simply get that run through there. And this creates a great honeycomb layer. There we go. Alright, now my next tip is to use a crayon. So I just removed the outer paper from my crayon, and I'm going to do a rubbing across the embossed image just to give some contrast to my honeycomb. Now I've tried using ink pads and ink daubers and different things, and I just don't have as much control as I'd like with that, so I thought I'd try the flat side of this crayon. And I go around and enforce the edges with a little more of this color, and I like the way this came out. So this may be a technique that I use in the future. There you can see the contrast that created. Okay, my circles for the shaker element of the card. I'm going to actually do this 3 times because I need a stability from that outer circle to support the shaker element of the card. And the inner circle will serve as the background on the inside of my shaker. I also use acetate. It's just some spare acetate from craft packaging. I just keep it on hand for when I want to make a shaker card. So again, I'm layering these 3 outer circles, and I have my acetate sandwiched in there. That's how I prefer to do it. And then I'll be using foam tape for this shaker part of the element. Now I'll move on to the flowers dies, and I cut 3 of those out. And I'm going to simply color these with my markers. Now to save time, I'm only going to color one of these flowers so you can see how I did it. And then I will jump forward and show you the finished product. So I'm going to use pink on one flower and yellows and oranges on the other 2 flowers. And these will go on the inside of my shaker element. So just as a little tip here, with a light green and a darker green marker, I can take the lighter and rub it across my darker marker, and this will give me a natural element for shading, especially in tight little images like these leaves. Because I don't want to overwhelm the leaves with the darker shades, so I'm just touching the light marker to the darker marker to get that. And then to clean my markers, I just scribble it on my paper. So I will do that for all 3 flowers. And again, I will be coloring the yellow and the orange off camera just to save time. So I can pop out the bloom portion of my flower, and I will be coloring that with 2 colors of pink. Now I wasn't concerned about what markers I was using. I don't have any ink on these. They're simply die cut, so nothing's going to make any ink bleed. So I could use whatever markers I have on hand. It didn't matter about the brands. I was just going for the colors. So again, I'm trying to use a darker and a lighter to create some contrast here on my blooms, just to add some interest. And I'll get those colors blended together. And this will create a cute little flower. Then I'll need to go back to that original die cut with the stems and add the pink around the perimeter of that, which will complete my flowers when everything's all put back together. This is going to go on that inner circle and create the interior for our shaker cards. Now I'm going to add a sentiment to the inside of my shaker, and I've used a lot of different pigment inks. This is from that same Firefly set, Life is Sweet, and I was going for a white pigment. But I found that in using that white, it's very difficult to get a crisp image on black, and I didn't want to do any heat embossing. I just simply wanted white on black for my sentiment. So I'll use my Misty, give that a couple of stamps there, and it's still fairly light, so I'll come back with a jelly roll pen and just use that as a template to reinforce the white color. And you can see how this white starts to pop with the jelly roll pen. It seems as if this black paper just soaks up the ink. And I wanted the sentiment to be crisp enough to be visible through the acetate. Okay, now to pop up the outer circles, I'll be using a double layer of foam tape, and I had to trim this down so that it fits in that tiny little perimeter. And if you'll remove the paper from your foam tape, it'll allow you to manipulate the foam tape to conform to your shape. So I'll simply go around this, and again I do this twice to give me 2 layers of foam tape so that it stands away from my card front, especially an embossed card front, because you want your sequins to be able to move easily. And in order to do that, you need a little bit of height on your foam tape. Okay, I will be adhering my flowers to that inside circle, and anything that overhangs the edge I will simply just trim away with my scissors after I get the flowers adhered to the inside circle. Get those all pressed down. And then I need to make sure that I align that in a good position so that my outer circle has plenty of room down in that bottom corner. Next, I use a little anti-static powder tool on the acetate, because when you add sequins, the acetate automatically has some static electricity, and you don't want your sequins to be stuck to the acetate, so the anti-static powder helps. I do take a little paper towel and wipe away the excess before I adhere that outer circle for my shaker element. And then I'll get that adhered over the inner circle. And that completes the shaker portion of our card. Next, I want to adhere my bee, and because I have the shaker rim on 2 thicknesses of foam tape, I need to also add that foam tape on one side of my bee, the side that will be adhered to the honeycomb. The other side I just use a liquid adhesive, and that will go right over the acetate and that outer circle. That just levels up your bee, which makes it even on all sides. And there's our shaker card. A few pictures of this. And then for the inside I use this penny black rubber stamp, and cut out some pieces from that embossed honeycomb just to add some interest to the inside of the card. And I used a couple of stamps from that same Firefly set. There's our card and our lined envelope. If you're interested in learning how to do easy peasy lined envelopes without any dies or special measurements, please go visit my card blog or my YouTube channel, where I have more videos on just doing the envelopes. I'm so glad you joined me today. Feel free to subscribe, and I hope to see you real soon. Happy crafting, everyone.